Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Uncover Ifa. I am Kanye Sola. If you do not know who I am Kanye Sola. This channel is all about my journey in Ifa as a new devotee of Ifa. And I'm bringing you a new video today. I disappeared for a little while. I've had some people reach out to me to find out what is going on. They're like, Kanye Sola, you just disappeared. We haven't seen anything from you in quite a while. And yes, that's right, I did disappear for a little while. And the reason being is because I really wanted to take a step back from social media and from everything to really dive into learning the culture of Yoruba, considering the fact that I was born here. Although I am of the Yoruba tribe, I was born in the United States, really separated from Africa. I really had nothing to do with it or even to know anything about that. So I wanted to take some time to really dive into learning the culture, learning the religion, learning the tradition, all of that jazz. So I'm coming back with a new video to give a quick update on where I'm at in my journey, what's going on in my journey. But this particular video, I wanted to talk about Babalawos. I wanted to talk about American Babalawos versus African Babalawos and why I chose African Babalawo. And if you are deciding to go down this Ifa journey yourself, hopefully I'll be a bit of help in your journey with, finding the right Babalawo for you, because that is quite a thing. Finding a Babalawo that actually works for you is something that I've learned in my journey so far. So this video is going to be all about that. I'm going to be sharing 6 tips on how you can go about, some of the things you could look for when looking for your Baba. I am going to talk about mostly Babas out of Africa because that's who I work with, and I'm going to explain why. So let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, why did I choose to go all the way to Africa to work with a Babalawo? Although I haven't been to Africa yet, I'm going, but I haven't been just yet. But I have started working with Babalawos in Africa, and here's why. The first reason why I chose to work with Babalawos in Africa is the difference in practice, not the culture, but the practice. Not to say that American Babalawos is doing things wrong and all of that business. Like, no, that's not even the case, because every Ile has its own way of practice. So what I wanted in my journey was to work with Babalawos that have the Yoruba concepts from its ancient form. I wanted the ancient form of Yoruba Ifa, and it's not really the ancient form here in the US. It traveled from Africa to Cuba to the US to Tutu, and it's not really in its ancient form here. And I wanted the ancient form of that. Not to say that I couldn't find it here. I'm sure that if I dug deep enough, I probably would have found it here. But why do all of that when I could just go to Africa and work with African Babalawos to try to get the ancient form of the practice? And I did. And I actually really appreciate getting the ancient understanding of the practice. There is a lot of differences between how American practitioners, Cuban practitioners operate versus the Yoruban practitioners. And that's what I wanted to, considering the fact that I am Nigerian, I am of the Yoruba tribe. I wanted to learn directly from Yorubans in Yoruba land. I wanted to go home. So that was my number one choice for that was my number one reason for diving into just trying to find people in Africa that I could work with. It was a long process. I came across a lot of different Babas, and boy, was it a journey. I tell you what, it was a journey, a funny journey, but it was definitely a journey. Another reason why I chose to work with African Babalawos was the benefits of it. As a new practitioner, I know that there's a lot of tools that I would obtain. I know that there's a lot of course, the knowledge, that's number one, but there's a lot of tools that I would have obtained. There was a lot of ritualistic type practices that I would have to learn at some point. And where better to learn it than on the motherland? I mean, it just feels like, you know, when I'm ready to be initiated, when I'm ready to take those steps forward, receiving my pots, receiving my prayer tools. I have prayer tools from Africa now that was shipped to me from the Babalawos that I work with. And honestly and truly, it's a whole different vibe. It's a whole nother feeling than, you know, me going on Amazon and finding some stuff real quick, or me just going to one of these stores here and just piecing together my tools. It just feels to me more homely. Homely is what I'm gonna use. To use tools that were hand carved from folks of the Yoruba tribe in rural communities. It just feels, I feel more connected with doing it that way. Another benefit is that when I am ready to go to Africa, I have created quite a community around me. As I mentioned before, I've met quite a few Babalawos in Africa, and I'm in Nigeria, excuse me, and I am still very much so friends with a lot of them, although they're not my one-on-one Babalawo. I have one Babalawo for that, and I'm just friends with the others. When I'm ready to go out there, there's people that I can see that I've talked with, that I video chat with, that, you know, knows me intimately and you know, as a person, not intimately like sexually, let's not go crazy, but you know, they know me, they know of me, they spoke to me, they know my story, they know me as a person. So when I'm ready to go out there, I feel a lot more safer, because there's a lot of people out there that know of my being, and they will also be aware that I'm making my way out there. I will be able to talk to them and spend time with them, and, you know, see their practice from their perspective. And yeah, to me, it's just, it's a more of a benefit of having, you know, relationships with people in Yorubaland, in Nigeria. So that's one of the reasons why I made it very important for me to work with a Babalawo in Africa. But there is some challenges to working with Babalawos in Africa, and I'm going to give you a few of them. One of the challenges is communication. Both verbal and texting communication can be quite hard, but, you know, I just figured my brain's a muscle, and if I work it out in this specific way, maybe I'll just understand them when they talk. And you know what? I did that. When I first started in my journey about a year ago, I did not understand them. Did not understand what the heck they were saying to me. Even though they were speaking English, their accents was so strong, I didn't know what the heck they were saying, and I would tell them, text it to me, and then I would have to really read the text over and over and over again, because again, there's a language barrier there. But over time, I was able to decode the text messages and understand what they're saying in their text messages, and I was also able to just, you know, reading what they're saying and then listening to what they're saying, I was able to start connecting the dots in my head. Then over time, it just became really easy for me to understand what they're saying, even with really, really, really thick Yoruban accents, like really, really thick accents. It was really hard to understand them before, but it became easier over time. So if you're thinking about, you know, moving in this journey and working with Babas in Africa, it's going to be a challenge to understand them in the beginning, but hold on, friend, because the more time you spend talking with them and understanding, trying to understand what they're saying, you'll be working your brain out to the point that you'll be able to understand them, no problem. It'll take a few weeks, but it'll happen. Another challenge is distance and time difference. And those two things actually affect the cost of shipping. When it's, you know, they do the practices for me, they do a lot of things, and sometimes there's stuff that they need to ship to me that I'm supposed to have in my possession, whether that be some type of soap spell, or you know, a prayer tool, or, you know, my hand of Ifa, all that stuff that I've gotten from my Baba had to be shipped. And the cost of shipping is pretty expensive, because unfortunately Nigeria is one of those suppressed countries. There is not a lot of resources there. It's really expensive to get things in and out of there, unfortunately. So shipping is pretty expensive. The time difference is a little tough. We are 8 hours apart. So trying to work my daily schedule and their daily schedule in with talking with each other during a time that we're both up is kind of hard. It gets kind of difficult, especially when they have other godchildren that they work with. It can get a little challenging to connect in that area. So one of the challenges is the distance, the time difference, and that affects the shipping cost. And yeah, now the last, but I want to say is the first, is trust. I fortunately haven't had this situation happen to me, but there has been situations where people find someone who's claiming to be a Babalawo. They pay them their money for a service. They kind of do the service or do something that might look like the service, but they don't ship them their items, you know, the consecrated items. They don't ship them, or they take the money and then they just vanish, you know, or they do what they're supposed to do, but they're consistently asking for money for things that are not Ifa related, that has nothing to do with that person. And that part actually happened to me. That last part actually happened to me. I've dealt with babas that just asks, can you buy me a phone? You know, just random things that has nothing to do with me. And it's up to you, you know, if you want to be helpful to your baba, if you want to, you know, be of assistance to your baba, since your baba is assistance to you, then you go right for it. But trust is another thing, because I've learned that they can become very conny. I don't know if that's a word or not, but I'm using it. They can be very conny. They can come up with things and just make you feel like you need to pay them for it. I don't know, it's weird. Which brings me to the tips. Okay, because the tips will help you get around a lot of these things that could be a problem when looking for a baba in Africa. Tip number 1 is age. How old is this baba? I've come to the conclusion that anything between 37 and 70, let's just go all the way up there in age, 70, 80, it's probably going to be okay. I have ran into a lot of the younger babalawos there. They're all over Facebook, honey. Yeah, no. There is something happening in Nigeria with the whole Ifa practice. The temples are popping up everywhere. They're teaching the younger generation Ifa, but the way they're teaching them is really money greedy type of behavior. They teach them they're teaching them just enough to look like a babalawo, but they're not actually teaching their students. Some of them aren't teaching their students. Some of them are. Some of them are just like really uniformed to where it's more about money than it is that person's spiritual well-being. Case in point, if you run into a baba, so this is something I really want to mention. If you run into a baba either in the US or in Africa that's telling you that you should get initiated to Ifa, you should get initiated to your Hederisha, you should get initiated to Ayami or the Egungun Society, or you should get initiated to all these things. What I have learned from my baba, who is an elder, he lives in a very rural community like such, what I've learned from him from the ancient forms of Ifa is that initiating to different orishas, different, like the Egungun Society, the Ayami, initiating to all of these things is the equivalent to meeting someone who would say something to you like, yes, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, Catholic, First Baptist, Seventh-day Adventist Christian. That's what I am. You know, it's you'll be looking at the person like, what? How are you doing all those practices are very, although yeah, they're all talking to Jesus, sure, but they're practicing differently. Like they, you know, Jehovah's Witness and Seventh-day Adventists, they have some different things going on from Catholics and the Christians. Like they're all different, you know. How could you be all of them? Well, it's the same thing with initiating to multiple. And according to the elders in the community where my baba stays, it's not a good idea to do that, because it could cause problems, not overnight, not right away, but it'll cause problems in the practitioner's life, where later on in life they might start developing some serious health issues. They might start developing some serious mental meltdowns and emotional meltdowns, and financial crises, and just relationship issues. Like, they'll start experiencing problems in their life that could have been avoided if they were focusing on one Orisha or one society. It's not doing all of it, but a lot of the Babalaos in Africa are very uniformed, and they're uniformed for money. Well, actually, not just Africa. Let me not say in Africa. A lot of Babalaos, period, are uniformed, and they're uniformed for the sake of money, not for the sake of traditional learning. And then some of them are not. Let me be fair. Some of them are not doing it for the money. Some of them were genuinely trained to believe that this is a good idea, that you should be initiated to multiple things, but in actuality, you should be initiated to only one. You can have a pot, but you should be initiated to only one. But again, a lot of them, if you're going the Ifa way, if you're going to Babalawo way in Nigeria, a lot of them are uniformed and taught to do things that way, because not only do they have the opportunity to do a lot of work for you, but it's an opportunity to charge you $3,000 to $5,000 for each one. So it really starts to add up, financially, and they don't really care about what's going to happen to that person. And some of them don't care. Some of them just really don't know. They're just doing it out of the fact that somebody else taught them to do it that way. There's no book in Ifa. There's no right or wrong way per se. It's not like, Christianity have the Bible, or the Torah, the Tanakh, it gets deep, but like, there isn't a book a book for Ifa. So everybody's just kind of doing their own thing. Every Ile does their own thing differently. But that was something that I learned from the community that I work with, is that initiating to all of them, it's like dividing your focus so much that it can become problematic. Another thing I learned was, in that problematic issue, is if one Orisha tells you don't eat fish, and then you initiate it to, let's say Oshun told you don't eat fish, and then you went and got initiated to Shango, and Shango says, well, you can't eat no other meat aside from fish, and you need to eat fish in order for your life to be good. So now you got a decision to make. You're gonna eat the fish, or are you just gonna be a vegetarian, vegan, or something of that nature? Now it kind of creates those little problems. So age, you really want to get with a Babalawo who is older and more seasoned in that area of Ifa, that knows those little things like that, because the younger Babalawos don't know those things. They don't know those things because they're being taught by somebody who probably knows those things, probably don't know those things, but don't seem to care about them either way. So that's something to pay attention to. Another thing you really want to pay attention to, their social media presence, and how important is it to them. If their social media presence and their reputation is like the most important thing to them, you might want to swipe left. You might want to go get out of there. What I've learned is, the more involved, and this is not just the Babalawos, I think this is human people. This is just us as people that I've been noticing. The more involved an individual is with social media, the less genuine they are. Everything is about like it's either some type of validation, or it's like recognition. It gets really weird, but in any case, everything gets lost, because now it just turns into I'm this, instead of, okay, this is what I am, let me help you. Let me help you get it right. It's an ego thing. It really starts to attack the ego. And social media does that. It does that for all of us. A lot of us, a lot of my friends, a lot of people I've known in the past didn't have a lot of ego issues until they started, really indulging in social media. And social media just really tells people that you are not special. You are not, compared to this other person who's doing this and that and the third, you are not great, and that really sticks with people whether they want to acknowledge it or not. And it becomes really toxic. So if for the Babalawo to be like really spiritually inclined, connected to who they are, and humble in their skin, and humble with where they stand in life, you would really want to try to find a Baba who is not too big on social media, that really don't give a shit about social media, is really just more focused on developing his relationships with his godchildren, and putting his focus and energy and attention into his godchildren in the most humbled and genuine way possible. That's what you want to find. And that individual that's on social media, that's really concerned with their social media credibility, is not going to be that person. Take it from me. I have learned that firsthand. I'll tell you all the story one day. Where do they live? Tip number 3, where do they live? Here's a tip. Find somebody, try to see even if you need to kind of network with people in Africa, people in Nigeria who are not Babalawos. If you need to kind of network with them to see if they can roll you into somebody who's in a more rural community. If you find a Babalawo that is in, let's say, Lagos, the biggest city in Nigeria, let's say Lagos, hightail it out of there, friend. Don't do it. The Babas that are in the cities are really, really, really thirsty. I mean, they're really thirsty. I've had one sit on the phone and pretend to cry just to try to get money out of me. It was really weird. But I've realized the Babas, this is from my experience, and I'm just giving this information from my experience, from my point of view. Let me just throw that out there one more time, because I've dealt with them. I've been doing this for a little while, and I've realized that Babas outside of Nigeria have more of a humbled mind. They don't care too much about money. They will do stuff for you that other Babas will charge $900 for. They'll do it for you for free because they actually have a joy and a love for the practice and for their craft in the practice. So for them, it's not about money. And I was able to connect the dots enough to realize that this is a rural thing. The people in the cities are in competition with each other. It's the social media thing, but in a city, they're in competition with each other. They're trying to be the greatest online. They're trying to be the greatest in person with their peers in the cities. The folks in the rural communities don't seem to give a shit about that, like, at all. They don't care about image at all. And when it comes down to finding a good Baba, you want to look for someone who doesn't care about social image. All they care about is whether or not the practice is being honored the way that it's supposed to be, and that you are learning adequately. You're not learning based off of the money somebody else wants to get out of your pocket. You're learning the tradition honestly. So my advice: pay attention to where they live. Pay attention to where they live, and really, really find somebody. If you might need to really dig deep, do some footwork, some really fancy footwork. I did, to really find somebody who is outside of the city and doesn't care about a social media appearance, and is older, an older person who's more seasoned. Okay. So that brings me to tip number 4. Okay, as I mentioned, I had a Baba pretend to cry just to get money from me. Pay attention to those red flags. Oh, because they will have those red flags for you, baby. Pay attention to those red flags. There's a lot of Babas, both here in the US and overseas. They got those red flags for you. And finding a Baba that works for you is just like finding a romantic partner. And a business partner, if you don't do the romantic thing. It's somebody that you're going to be spending intimate time with, that you're going to be needing to trust in a lot of ways. Your Baba supposed to be somebody who you feel safe with, you feel protected working with. You know, if you don't feel safe and protected with your baba, if you feel like your baba is always out to get you, you have a problem. You shouldn't be feeling that way with your baba. It's a relationship. It's a real relationship that needs to be one of mutual respect and love and honesty and openness. It has to have those things, much like your romantic relationships. So my advice is really pay attention to those red flags. If you come off of the phone with your baba and you're feeling some type of way, you're feeling ripped in some type of way, you're feeling like you was just talking down to, is I've had that happen with a couple of the babas that I've worked here in the US. Because let me go back a little bit. I did work with a couple here before I made the decision to go there. And the ones that I worked with here, our energies just did not sync up. I didn't feel connected to the things that they were talking about, what they were, you know, saying to me. I felt like one of them really needed a lot of validation. The other really needed a big house. And so, you know, and because they wanted a big house, they wanted to stagnate everybody. They didn't want them to move forward too fast, or in their opinion, move forward too fast, and, you know, whatever it was. But at the end of the day, we didn't work out. You know, we didn't work out. And I even had one baba here in America tell me that, oh, well, maybe this practice isn't for you, because I didn't want to work with them. And that's such an ugly thing to say to somebody. Like, don't say that. That's so ugly. Come on. Just because I don't want to work with you doesn't mean that the practice isn't for me. Nah, man, you aren't for me. It's different, you know? But anyway, when you're working with them, you should have a good relationship with your baba. They should feel like your best friend. You know, they should feel like your dad or your mom, your grandmama, you know, your grandpapa. You know, they should feel comfortable and safe. So I really want to say, pay attention to those red flags. If you come away from your baba feeling like you was just attacked during a reading, if you felt like you was just, you know, if you feel any type of way, pay attention to that, because they do that in both locations. They do that. So pay attention, find someone that you feel really comfortable with before you start paying for services. Find somebody that you feel really comfortable with before you do any type of work with that person, aside from a reading. That's like the first thing. They'll do a reading. And again, pay attention to those red flags. For those young women that are going out there, that are looking to go out there to find yourself a baba, they will try to coax you into a marriage. I've had a baba tell me that if I part from him, and some of them makes these decisions based off of your old dues. So this is something. If they're trying to tell you that, oh, if you ever part from me, your life is going to be bad, you're going to die and all this stuff, like, no, that's red flag. Walk away from that person, because they're using Ifa in a way that it's not supposed to be used. They're using it to threaten you. Ifa is not about threats. That's not cool. Pay attention to those red flags, because they'll make decisions about you based off of your Odu. Like I said, they will look at your Odu, and if your Odu has anything to do with money, especially money, number one thing is money, I think. If you are their wife, just like that. They don't care if they have a wife already. They don't care if they have 6, 7 kids, 9 kids, whatever. They don't care. You are their wife now, because you're going to be rich in your life as far as they're concerned. And as far as your Odu is concerned, you know, so, you know, your wife now. So pay attention to those red flags. And if they come at you like that, really shut that down. Really shut that down and let them know that if you're not looking for that, I mean, if you are, do you, sis? But if you're not looking for that, shut that down and don't let them, you know, corner you into a situation like that, because one thing it will do is it'll hinder your growth in Ifa. Once you open that door and decide, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do this, you're no longer talking about Ifa. Every day is, baby, I love you, baby, I love you. It's not what you want. Trust me, I know. Been there, done that. Moving on. Okay, so the next thing, number 5. So I talked about number 4, red flags. Number 5, knowledge base. Knowledge base. Listen to what they are teaching you. I have had Babalawos who were babies to the practice and didn't know what they were talking about. Actually don't have a lot of knowledge to teach anybody how to tie their shoe. But I've ran into a couple of them that was so forthcoming with inadequate information. I had a Baba tell me that Oshun was the rain. I had a Baba tell me that if you step in the river, Oshun will bite your toe or something like that. Knowledge base. Listen to what they're saying and what they're communicating to you. If it doesn't sound right or make sense, and if it's Googleable, Google it. If you are in Ifa groups online, go to the groups, ask some questions, see if you can get, some context on what they're saying and verify if what they're saying is right. And don't do this to them all the time. Like, if you decide, okay, I'm new to this Baba, I don't know if what he's saying to me is right or not, so I'm gonna go to the groups or whatever, and I'm gonna, fact check what he's saying. That's what you should do. Fact check what he's saying. And if it checks out every time, if it checks out every time, or if it checks out, more than half of the time, and you decide, okay, I'm gonna continue to work with this Baba, at that point, work with that Baba. Don't jump around in Babas, because the practice is about learning. Okay, the practice is about learning and being involved in what you're learning. And it can get really messed up, because like I said, every Ile is different. Every community is different. They have their different ways of doing it. I've learned that Olokomi is very different from Palo, and both of which is very different from Isheshe, both of which is very different from the ancient forms of Ifa in Nigeria. And even they call it Isheshe, but it's different from the Americanized Isheshe, So with that being said, every Ile has their different ways of doing things. So don't bounce around. There's no book. There's no one way of doing this. If you choose to work with that Baba, stay with that Baba. And after doing your fact checking and really making sure that his knowledge base is on point, then stick with that Baba. Don't go back to the groups. Trust what he or she tells you. Okay? Trust what they tell you at that point. Don't bounce around, because it'll just confuse you. And if your Baba finds out about it, they'll get quite pissed off, because it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to the practice. It's disrespectful, like, across the board. It's really disrespectful to bounce around. If you're going to work with one Baba, if you're going to work with that Baba, make it be with that Baba. When you're ready for certain appeasements and stuff that needs to be done in person, plan a trip, hop a flight, get there and get it done. Get your butt back home. That's all I can say, but don't bounce around. Don't do that, because it'll mess you up with the knowledge. It'll mess you up. Work with one, stick with one. Okay. And until your journey comes to an end, however that might happen. And when it's clear that journey has come to an end, then go ahead, feel safe, free, and clear to trickle on over to the next Baba. Okay. Number 6, humbleness. Make sure that the Baba you work with is super duper humble. Like I mentioned before, if they're willing to do work with you without you paying an arm and a leg and cutting your ear off and all that business, then that's a pretty humble Baba. Okay, if he's not too worried about his social media status, that's a really humble Baba. Somebody who is willing to sit in the woods and listen to the spirits for you. I know you're like, what? Yeah, they do. A good humbled Baba does that. A good humbled Baba will sit in the woods and talk to the spirits on your behalf. Make offering to the spirits in the woods on your behalf, and in different ways and different forms, right? Yami, maybe for the ancestors, it's different stuff, different, for different situations. But if they're willing to do things to make sure that whatever turmoil you're going through in your life, or whatever is coming up that might be traumatic for you in your life, and they were able to see it, if they're willing to do something to help you with that problem without charging you for $200-$300, maybe $500-$900, that is the Baba that you want to work with. Definitely. Humbleness is so important when it comes to a Babalawo. There are a lot of Babalawos who are extremely egotistical, extremely image driven and money driven, to the point that humbleness is just completely out of the window, and it makes it very hard to trust and move forward with them and what they're saying to you. So Humbleness. Find a Baba that's really humble. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope this information was helpful. Please let me know in the comments what you think. If I said something that you got caught on and I didn't expand on it, which I feel like I expanded on everything, but if I didn't expand on something that you really would like to know more about, let me know in the comments so I can do a video on that. On this channel, I will be uploading videos talking about my journey, what I've learned in my journey, what directions I went in my journey. As of right now, I'm still learning. I'm not initiated. I'm still learning. I've had my hand of Ifa. I have a few pots that I pray to, and I'm learning how to do that first. And I'm learning the culture, and I'm learning the value of ancient Ifa understanding, which to me is the most important part of it. So that's where I'm at. I'll be sharing more of that moving forward, and I don't upload all the time. I am more focused on the learning aspect of my journey right now, and so I won't be uploading a whole lot, but I have been, I got my little spell book. My Baba gives me spells. He gives me rituals with herbs, African herbs, and I'm so excited about that because I've used them. And oh my God, there is nothing like putting some herbs in your body that was grown on the motherland. Girl, let me tell you something. So much energy, so much life. I felt so good after taking a few of the herbs that he sent to me. And so I want to go and show you guys how I went about that process, how he went about that process, what herbs you should use and what they're good for, what they can help with, both in the body for health and in the reality for drawing in wealth or love or communication or whatever. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that I'm learning so much, and I can't wait to share them with you here. And that is what I'll be doing. So I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope this information was helpful to you again. And I shall. Have a blessed day, guys.